Hydrogen generator takes water and separates the molecules to where you have 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Now the oxygen that's created is not air, but it's oxygen. Familiar with acetylene and oxygen? So oxygen is flammable and pure, and hydrogen naturally is volatile. Once the hydrogen is separated from the water, then the hydrogen goes into the intake manifold, which mixes with the air that's coming in to the engine, and it boosts the octane rating of the gasoline once it gets inside the combustion chamber. So instead of using 89 to 90 octane, it boosts up to 130 octane inside the combustion chamber. So as a result, you have more horsepower. You have more power. The engine's running more proficiently, more cleaner. It cleans off all the carbon, and as well as the carbon that break off that goes between the cylinder wall and the piston, so you don't have scores inside the cylinder. You don't have valve buildup with the carbon, and because the engine runs so proficiently and better, then you use less fuel to get the same amount of performance. We make hydrogen in the hydrogen generator, which is water. So there's not enough hydrogen there to make a bomb. It would go pop. It would explode what's maybe in the line, if it got into the line, and then the rest was water. It would stop right there. And if a car, let's say, rolled over and got in an accident, and they poked a hole inside the container, these are all stainless steel, which would be pretty hard to do. If they poked a hole in it, it would just put water on the fire. Compared to everything on the internet, I've worked on this thing for over 3 years, and I started out with the ones on the internet, and they didn't work. The ones, the dry cells got way too hot, and you have to use way too much catalyst, and the other ones just did not perform for long periods of time. You can get all the hydrogen generators and work, but with the amount of catalyst in them, in order to make them perform, they won't last for very long. Within 15, 20 minutes, an hour, the units get so hot you can't hold them. These units will go for 8, 10, 14 hours without getting hot. The ones on the internet, every one that I've ever seen on the internet, they have problems with the catalyst. They'll use 20 and more teaspoons of catalyst for 4 gallons of water. I use 1 level teaspoon for 4 gallons of water. So because of less catalyst, less heat, less amperage, but I still get the performance of the hydrogen. I've taken one unit apart that was on a semi that went from 6 miles per gallon to 8 miles per gallon. Been on there for 2 years, took it all apart, cut it apart, 0 corrosion. It was tarnished a little bit, the negative plates were tarnished a little bit, but there was 0 corrosion in it. I would say these units, because they're made out of 304 stainless, they'll run for 10 years easily. I've had some customers that have had some of the other units that bought off the internet, and they use like striker plates for light that go on in your house, and they're made out of 304 stainless. Since the units didn't work, they bought my unit in place of it, and they had it on there for like 3 months. I took it apart, and there was already corrosion, and the plates were already being eaten up by the catalyst. Of course, I might add, because of the less catalyst that I use, and the less heat, and the amperage is very low, so I don't have the corrosion problems that everyone else has. Well, I've been a mechanic in the 50s. I built hot rods, dragsters. I graduated into heavy equipment, trucks. I worked for Freightliner. I worked on scrapers, dozers, cranes 60 foot tall. I worked on the majority of stuff that mechanics just have seen in magazines. And I'm a master mechanic. I work on transmissions, weld, do everything. And I saw this particular unit on the internet. It was brought to my attention. And so I thought, well, this is really something that's going to take hold, and I'd like to get on the bottom floor. So I started developing it about 3 years ago, and I bought the ones off the internet, and I called the owners up and I said, this does not work. This is all hype. And so I proceeded to tell them where they could make their units work a little bit better, and I got thinking to myself, I'm doing this all wrong. I need to develop it myself. And so that's what I did, and that's what I've done. Well, because the hydrogen burns more proficiently, it assists the gasoline to burn totally. So therefore you don't have carbon buildup. But also gets rid of the soot inside the catalytic converter, so a person won't have to have any problem with the catalytic converter get cleaned up. In the new vehicles, the new semis, the new trucks, new generators, as well as the TK units, refrigeration units for reefers, they've all got to have catalytic converters on them. Well, the catalytic converter costs anywhere from $400 to $1,000 every year to have it cleaned out. With the hydrogen generator on there, it'll eliminate all the soot, and so therefore the soot is what causes the catalytic converter from functioning correctly, so it'll eliminate that, saving thousands of dollars. There's no way that the hydrogen generator can harm the engine. You're not putting in enough hydrogen to where it's running, the engine's running totally on hydrogen. If that were the case, then you'd have a lubrication problem, because there's no lubrication in hydrogen. So and even an engine that runs mostly on hydrogen, you still got to have either diesel or gasoline go into the engine to lubricate the side of the cylinder walls. Otherwise, they'll score. Depends on the throttle position. So if you're going down the freeway at 60, 65 miles an hour, which is the limit in California, you're just barely touching that throttle. You're barely depressing it. And so as a result, you're going to get probably 30%, possibly not more than that. And you're going to see a noticeable increase in your fuel mileage. When you have your throttle depressed, such as you're climbing a hill, you've got a heavy load, tires are low, you're in stop-and-go traffic, and you're throttling on and off, you're using maybe 3–5% hydrogen, if that, because the majority of it's being, the engine's being supplied gasoline. And so therefore, you're not going to really notice any remarkable difference. But going down the freeway, we're putting in enough hydrogen to make a difference, but not enough to come anywhere near harming an engine. That's a good question. The ones on the internet, if you look up, they need to put water in their units every 300, maybe 500 miles. These units will go 4,000 or 5,000 miles without adding water. The units on the internet that use water, where does that water go? That water goes into red hot exhaust valves, warping the valves and scoring the cylinder. You can't put water in an engine. There's no lubrication in water. So these units here will go for virtually a long time. There's service or maintenance free until you change oil. So every time you change oil, you change the solution and add more water and solution to the unit. Normally just draining the unit, getting some water, possibly with tap water with white vinegar, putting it in the unit, sloshing around a little bit, or let the unit run for maybe 10–15 minutes if the person wanted to. Do a thorough cleaning, and then drain that, and then put in distilled water with the solution. Maintenance, there is no maintenance of these units. You put it inside the trunk, on the side of the frame, you run it. When you change oil, you service it, and there's no problem with that. And the units naturally, because of the amount of hydrogen it puts out, there's no soot in the exhaust. Diesels, 7.3 Ford, as well as the Azusus, after running these units here for a month or so, you go to the exhaust, try to rub the soot off the tailpipe, and there is none. You look at the exhaust pipes on the gasoline engines, and the tailpipes are a dark gray instead of a black, as all the new cars are. So, and then the overall cost and longevity of the unit, a person should realize on a semi-truck, they should realize profit after possibly 1 or 2 months, depending on how they drive, and then for the next 10 years or longer, the unit's free. Depends upon the driving conditions and the amount of miles a person drives. Naturally, if they drive 100 miles to work, 100 miles back, the increase would save them probably within 4 to 6 months. They would have their money paid back. With a semi-truck, 1 month, the average fuel mileage for one company that I'm doing work for, they spend $20,000 a month. With the units on 3 trucks, they are now down to $16,000 a month. So within 1 month's time, they've paid for a unit. You know, the rest of the 10 years, they were getting the profit from their fuel efficiency, and it's all for free. The results on the hydrogen unit varies naturally. It depends upon load, air pressure in the tires, just like gasoline. If you're running up a hill, you're going to use more gas, and if you're on flat land driving with the cruise control on and on a nice bright sunny windless day, you're going to get far more fuel mileage. So it varies, and an individual it has a van with a decent load in it. They'll go from 13 miles to the gallon to 16, 17, 18 miles per gallon. Empty trucks, they'll drive, we have one truck that drives over 74, goes over to the mountains and that, but a lot of the driving is on flat land, except for that little mountain range, and he went from 14 to 22 miles per gallon. We got one on a Jaguar with a blower, supercharger on it. He went from 22 to 30 miles per gallon. Got one on a brand new Armada. They went from 13.5 miles per gallon to 22 miles per gallon, all flatland. And so there's been a lot of successes. I've got over 40 units out now, no comebacks, everyone's happy, and everyone's getting different fuel mileage depending on their the terrain that they drive. If they go up mountains, they're doing a lot of mountain driving, doing a lot of heavy hauling, they're not going to see a big difference whatsoever. They'll have a cleaner engine, but as far as money back on the proficiency of the unit, it's not really going to give them that much. Okay, so in town, when a person's like from my house to Home Depot, it's approximately a quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile at the most. There's 6 stop signals. If I hit every signal just right, I sit at the stop sign, I wait for the light to change, my engine's using up gasoline, the light turns green, I throttle down to get up to speed, I'm wasting a lot of fuel. Comes to the next stop sign, same thing happens. If you do that 6 times, you can use up maybe a quarter of a gallon of gas in a half a mile. Of course, the only way it's really going to get good fuel mileage is the way all cars get and vehicles get good fuel mileage, and that's when they're at a steady pace and they're going at the speed limit. For trucks, 55 miles an hour. For cars, 65 miles an hour. You see a remarkable increase. If you're trying to go 85, 90 miles an hour, you're not going to get the increase. Like I say, it's going to clean the motor, but as far as getting any money back or the unit paying for itself, it's not going to be able to do that with that type of terrain. Or if you're living in the mountains, you're going uphill, you know very well you're using maybe 8 miles per gallon. If you have a truck, a brand new Ford, Chevy, Dodge truck, even a Toyota, they're getting 8 miles a gallon. You go up the mountains. On the flat land, you may get 16. With the hydrogen unit, going up and down the mountains, you'll still get 8 miles per gallon. On the flat land, though, you get 20, 24, 26. The quality of the units, the internal parts are made out of 316 stainless, which is twice the cost of 304 stainless or more, but they don't corrode. They're so dense and thick, and they conduct good electricity enough to where the minus and the plus plates, as they create the hydrogen, will not corrode. And the external parts I make out of 304 because there's no corrosive area in that. They're not energized with electricity, and they last for a long time. They won't rot, they won't get rusty, and of course the overall performance of them, it looks good. All the rods that we use, every nut and bolt, it's all 316, so we don't have to worry about any corrosion. Well, but because of the size of the units and the size of the hydrogen generator, the plates inside them, after 2 years with zero corrosion, these units would last minimum 10 years, if not longer.